Bernard Tobin here for RealAgriculture.com. We are at the Ontario Seed Growers meeting just down here in Brampton, Ontario, joined by Art Schaafsma from the University of Guelph. We've been talking about neonics and dust and seed treatments. And Art, you've just talked, you've done a lot of research on this over the last 5 years. And you've basically just said, hey, when it comes to neonics, we have a machinery problem. Can you explain that?
Yeah, Bernard, thanks for asking the question. In sum, when we look at the dust issue, it's the dust that's coming out of the back of the planter that is the problem, and we can trace most of the neonic residues back to the planter issue. And when I talk about planters, it's the vacuum style planters. And the root of the problem, we first thought it was talc, and so we eliminated talc as the problem, and that was contributing. But a large contributor to the issue is the dust that is coming from the field while you're planting. So you're disturbing the dust. That gets picked up by the intake of the vacuum system, which keeps the seed on the plate, which turns which allows the placement of the seed. And that dust is acting like sandblasting material, and it's taking material or insecticide off the seed coat, and then that gets exhausted out the back of the planter. And it's the planters that have the high volume, high negative pressure units that are the worst contributors to this. And so we really need to take another look at how we operate these planters. We have to either clean the air going in to the intake, to the seed metering units, or we have to and maybe combine it with cleaning the air coming out so that the exhaust is clean. Because essentially what we've created is a drift problem. And if we solve that drift problem, then over 95% of the fugitive dust that's creating the problems that the beekeepers talk about, that's pretty much cleaned up.
Right. You said that neonic, that seed treatment doesn't really move a lot in the ground on the seed, but it's the air, it's the dust.
That's correct. So once the material leaves the planter, it settles onto the surface of the soil, and then it's subject to redistribution through wind or water, erosion, and that's where the contamination is coming from off-site.
Right. Now let's talk about you've done research. You basically say, hey, I can eliminate 90% of this. How can you do it? What role do the manufacturers have to play?
Okay, yeah, there are a couple of things that have been attempted. One is the Bayer fluency agent, and in our hands, without considering the dust from the field, we're getting about maybe 60% maximum utility out of a Bayer fluency agent. And we were surprised by that, because in the lab we can show that it's well over 95%, so something was missing. And we think the field dust is the piece that's missing. So another approach is to look at the polymers that the seed is being treated with, so the things that make the insecticides and fungicides stick onto the seed. We can change those and make them a little more abrasive resistant. Or you could even put an aftercoat, a polymer like a nail polish coating over the seed so that it becomes abrasion resistant. There are several ways of cleaning the air before you let it pass through the seed metering unit. There are pre-filters, there are post-filters, there are cyclone machines that can clean the exhaust air, and then you can apply the dust that comes out of that into a furrow off the planter with a coulter or something. But the important thing is to make sure that the seed that is placed on the seed, or the treatment that's placed on the seed, stays on the seed. And once you get it in the ground, we've shown by various means that it doesn't move very far. It's when it ends up on the surface that it's subject to movement.
Right. Now you said, in talking with farmers here, the old finger planting, the old finger planters. They were great because there wasn't that vacuum. The vacuum is the challenge.
Yeah, it's the high air volume that's being exhausted, and the air that's passing by the seed while it's being held onto that disc. That's what the problem is.
You talked about some retrofit options as well. Some of them you like, some of them you think might work. Talk about those.
Yeah, so we have a lot of discussion coming out of Europe, and there have been a few installed in Canada. These are the deflector units. And in principle, you'd think that they would be a good idea, because what you're doing is you're slowing the air down and you're not allowing it to escape into the atmosphere. So that is a solution. But where it ends up is not a solution. It ends up on the soil surface, and it's subject to redistribution. So I'm not a real keen supporter for the deflector units.
Right. Now, just talk about. I guess I want to wrap this up. You basically told the farmers here that this is a a beachhead issue. I mean, we can solve this, but it needs to get solved, because there's more things that are going to come to a head.
Right, and so I've given up thinking that this is just a problem related to neonics. That's the first pesticide that the folks that are anti-pesticide are after. They're going to look at other things like fungicides and other insecticides, anything that's systemic. And unfortunately, it's the systemic pesticides that work best as seed treatments, and we certainly don't want to lose our ability to use seed treatments. So we have to take into account that this isn't going to stop, and so we have to look at the equipment that we're using, and we are going to have to seriously modify it so that we can eliminate what I would call a drift problem.
Right, and manufacturers can do that. I mean, there's a lot of work ahead, but it can be done.
There's no reason why it can't be done.
Awesome. Hey, sir, thank you so much for your time today.
No problem. You're welcome.